This is VOCM Open Line. Call 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626. The views and opinions of this program are not necessarily those of this station. The biggest conversation in Newfoundland and Labrador starts now. Here's VOCM Open Line host Patty Daly.
Well, all right. Linda Swain in for Patty Daly, who is off today. Looking forward to hearing from you today. So whatever's on your mind, by all means, pick up the phone, give us a call. It doesn't have to be limited to some of the issues that I raise off the top of the show. Whatever's on your mind, fire away. Well, the owners of GC... sorry, Jerry Lynn. Oh, my goodness. I was poked right out there. Sorry about that. There's a transition that takes place here in the mornings between the morning show team and the rest of the crew. And Jerry Lynn has to sneak past me, and I just... I just squat her. Anyway, sorry about that, Jerry Lynn. The owner of CG Strategies have been summoned to testify before the federal government's Operations Committee or face arrest. Christian Firth and Darren Anthony have until now failed to respond to summons to appear before the House of Commons, but a Conservative motion passed in Parliament last week following a filibuster will compel them to appear, or arrest warrants will be issued. Federal Auditor General Karen Hogan this month released a scathing report into the implementation and management of the ArriveCan app, revealing that the information they were able to piece together showed Ottawa paying out close to $60 million. But she admitted the full amount may never be known because of the shocking lack of information available. Opposition critic for ethics and accountable government, Michael Barrett, says the two behind GC Strategies will be compelled to testify about their involvement. In this province, of course, we saw the $35 million plus spent with Canadian Health Labs for the provision of travel nurses. Decisions made during the pandemic when quick action was necessary to try address immediate needs are leading to some pretty serious questions about the procurement of services during COVID. Public procurement is supposed to be, of course, a rigorous process, as we know. And when you're trying to get things moving quickly, the argument can be made that these kinds of things can happen, but they shouldn't happen. The AG was the one who brought the public's attention to the GC Strategies ArriveCan app fiasco. And, of course, she admitted, and we covered that here on VOCM, that she was alarmed, not by what she found, but what she couldn't find. There simply was no paper trail. And this is a huge expense to the Canadian taxpayers. Now there are calls for the AG to be brought in to examine the travel nurse situation in this province. And, of course, we saw that situation evolve in the last little while. Do you agree? Let me know what you think about that and about, some of the measures taken during COVID, which, as we know, was a very strange and unusual time. We kept using the word pivot, and pivoting requires, quick action and the like. But now we're starting to see, I suppose, some of the problems that have evolved from that. Well, the FFAW says it has been part of virtually no consultation when it comes to Bill C-49, which would amend the Atlantic Accord to allow for offshore wind development. Why is this a concern to the FFAW? Well, of course, they're the ones that are making their living, their members are the ones that are making their living off the ocean, which is going to be affected by this. The bill is currently making its way through the House of Commons. Because of a lack of consultation, says FFAW Industry Relations Representative Katie Power, they have had to insert themselves into the situation at the very last hour. She says she spoke in Ottawa recently on the issue, but was only given 24 hours notice to do so. The union's concerns relate to what they believe are a lack of transparency and around potential displacement that could happen. Power says the feds essentially want to substitute the language in the original Accord Act relating to oil and gas for the new industry. But she says there's no language in the bill for how fisheries would be compensated if they are pushed out of a fishing area. Are you satisfied with the level of consultation on proposed wind or hydrogen developments in this province? I would encourage you to give us a call. Officials with the NL Winter Games, and you just heard that on your VOCM mornings a short while ago, saying that they're doing their best to provide accommodations for all of the athletes. Apparently there was a little bit of an oversight in regards to some athletes who did not have proper bedding. Multiple posts on social media allege the athletes were not provided with beds. In a statement to VOCM News, Games officials said they have ensured that all the athletes had appropriate bedding for their Games experience, and athletes from all regions were asked to bring an air mattress they could use during their stay. Athletes who were coming by plane with baggage restrictions were also provided with either an air mattress or cot upon arrival, and will keep them for the remainder of the Games. And we just heard them apologize for oversight. I think the numbers were just a bit off there. Anyway, if you have any thoughts on that, you're certainly welcome to give us a call. Federal Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland says pharmacare will not jeopardize Canada's fiscal standing as the federal government intends to abide by spending rules it promised in the fall. The NDP announced on Friday that a deal had been reached on pharmacare that would allow every Canadian with a health card to access free diabetes medications and birth control. The National Pharmacare program will be introduced in the House of Commons this week. Freeland, who is in Poland meeting with the PM in that country, says Ottawa is committed to striking the right balance between helping Canadians and fiscal responsibility. In response to calls for more disciplined budgeting, the federal government set out a goal to keep deficits below 1% of GDP beginning in 2026-27 and to maintain the current fiscal year's deficit at or below the spring budget projection of $40.1 billion. It's also aiming to lower the debt to GDP ratio in 2024-25 relative to the projection in the fall economic statement. Health Minister Mark Holland has raised the cost of a future pharmacare program repeatedly as negotiations appeared to stall earlier this year. Does the cost of a national pharmacare program worry you? I'd like to hear what you have to say. And very sad news this morning. Very sad to hear the news related to St. John's City Councillor Debbie Hanlon. She's taken an indefinite leave of absence as she undergoes treatment for a very serious health issue. The family tells VOCM News they will have a more detailed public statement this afternoon on Hanlon's Facebook page, but they do confirm she was diagnosed with a form of cancer after suddenly falling ill about 10 days ago. Since then, she's been hospitalized and is undergoing aggressive treatment to stabilize her condition. She was first elected in the 2008 by-election for Ward 4, re-elected in the 2009 general election. She didn't run in 2013, but was elected again in 2017 and 2021 as a councillor at large. She's also been chosen as one of Atlantic Canada's top 50 CEOs 3 times for her real estate and other business endeavors, and our very best go out to Debbie Hanlon and her family at this very difficult time. Well, those are just some of the things that you can weigh in on or speak on something of your own choosing, and we're going to start the show this morning in the beautiful district of Fogo Island, Cape Friels. Dana Blackmore, hello.
Good morning, Linda. How are you?
Good, Dana. How are you?
I'm good. I'm excited.
Yes, I understand you're throwing your hat in the ring.
I am. It's been a rough year, an emotional one for sure. And I think that, after some consideration and, what Derek would tell me would probably be, you go get your big girl britches on. Excuse me, it's a little bit emotional talking about it.
Of course it is.
Yeah.
I mean, you worked so closely with him over the years. What was it like working with him?
He was, I think the province's grief extends, it gives us an idea of how much he was beloved. And I mean, for me, the moment I met Derek, I was at kind of a crossroads in my life, and I didn't know, if I was going to stay in this area. He walked in and interviewed me and, said, do you think you want to do this? And it was an immediate connection with him. He was always pleasant. He was hardworking. We never had a cross word in 8 years. And when he got sick last year, it took the wind out of our sails, but, we were determined then to kind of uphold the district in the matter that he would have wanted it. And so in terms of being MHA, I mean, it's kind of work that I've been doing for the last 10 months or so. Of course, when he got sick, we didn't give him a lot of stuff to do in the sense of, we didn't bother him while he was recovering. And the intention was that we were going full and, hard on this when he got well. It was in December that we found out that, his prognosis was different. And, we concentrated on getting through Christmas, and we didn't have a chance to really talk about, what he would want me to do. I think it was kind of, it was something that, that it was kind of, we had a family relationship in that, I think it's something that he would be proud of, that I went on and carried on in his honor, I guess. And I've learned a lot from him.
So you've been, for all intents and purposes, doing the constituency work for the last little while, as you say, to allow him to concentrate on his health and his family. Did you like the work is what I guess I'm asking, getting to know the people and that sort of thing?
Yeah, so it's been 8 years, and first of all, Linda, I'd like to throw out a huge bouquet to all the constituency assistants in the province. They work tirelessly. We're at the front line, and I mean, it goes beyond an administrative role. We deal with the frontline callers, and when you have an MHA like Derek, who was in 3 pretty big portfolios, he was Minister for Municipal Affairs, TI. He was Minister for FFA, and sometimes when you're reaching out for your minister, you'll hit the MHA's office, and that means you'll hit me. So I have a lot of experience in, in some of those departments. If I can, I would assist municipalities with things like municipal capital works or request for proposals, facilitate meetings with ministers. When dealing with transportation and infrastructure, I deal with, the mayors, town clerks on both islands, Fogo and Change Islands, dealing with the ferry. When you're in the role as long as I am, you have those connections with, managers in those departments. When Derek worked with FFA, a big part of that portfolio was Crown Land, so I'm pretty well an expert on Crown Lands now. Like if you had to call, you gain that knowledge through experience.
Crown Lands, of course, very tangly, as you know. I did a full hour-long program with Derek a couple of years ago, and at the very end of the program, after talking about all the many things in his portfolio, we didn't even start on Crown Lands, and he admitted at the time, he said, that's a full-hour show in itself.
Yeah, exactly. But, I think sometimes people will call the office and they would say, oh, hi, is this Derek's secretary? And it depended on the day. Sometimes I would say, yes, this is the secretary. But, for all intents and purposes, when you're an assistant, a constituency assistant, the administrative duties are there. However, there is an expectation that, you can do those big things too. And I can, and I have. I've been doing them for the last, while. And I know Derek was very proud of me. And when he was going through his illness, he was always reaching out to say, thank you so much. And he'd be like, listen, don't thank me. This is part of my job, and I'm happy to do it. And, so I can navigate through any of the role that is an MHA now because I've been doing it for a long time. And again, especially when you have, MHAs who are in these big portfolios, and Derek was busy, expectedly so, when he had those kinds of portfolios, that he was going to be a very busy man. So as a result of that, I had a busy office as well, and he trusted me with that work.
I know the circumstances are, very unique and extraordinary in this particular circumstance, but did you ever imagine an occasion where you would be offering yourself for public service? I've got an education background, so I taught for going in 20 years, math, biology, and I've always been, I'm pretty comfortable with public speaking and, giving my point of view, and I don't back down from things.
and I think I have a pretty wonderful rapport with people. Like, I feel like I'm well liked in the district. If I imagined it, I don't know, because Derek was such he was a dog to work, so I never imagined that, there would be a time when it would come anytime soon that he would have, not offered himself for the MHA. Because, last March he came in, he walked in the door and he goes, "Hey, you think we got another one in us?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure," because I love this work. So I can't imagine that I wouldn't love being an MHA. He did. The only thing would be that I wouldn't have the House of Assembly experience, but then nobody does before they go into the House of Assembly. So the experience that I would bring forward would obviously be, the knowledge that I've acquired in 8 years working closely with an MHA that had 3 huge portfolios. And as CAs, you get everything, Linda. You get everything that you could. So we have to know something about everything. You have to know about home care. You have to know about medical transportation assistance program. You would have, if somebody calls you and asks, about a medical appointment, and how you could facilitate getting that, the Newfoundland and Labrador prescription drug program. Like, all of those things you're so keenly aware of that's a date. So if someone calls the office, I wouldn't have to go looking for that. I know that. I've done it for 8 years. And then, like I said...
sorry, I was going to say, I guess it's a testament to how popular Derek Bragg actually was, just from the simple fact that there's a fair bit of competition, for what we understand, for the Liberal nod in the district. Oh,
yeah. There's some fantastic, nominees, and... I respect all of them, and I've worked closely with them, so that's the other thing. As the assistant, in my role, I know all these guys and ladies, and, and I have close connections with all the municipalities, for example, the local service districts, so all the chairs, the non-incorporated. We visited the district quite often. I'm headed to Fargo this week to speak with Mayor Andrew Shea and some of the other people down there that are on different boards, and probably speak with some people throughout the district, just kind of getting some legwork. It's a really big district. We run here Bay to Fargo Island, so the geography, and but yeah, so I'm hoping to get out. And a lot of them already know me. And most people would probably recognize my voice before they might recognize me, because I've talked to thousands of people in 8 years in this district. So a lot of them, I don't want to miss those connections either. If I can help or call up, so-and-so and say, "Good morning, how are you doing? How did that work out?" Or, it's a lot of personal connections made. It's not a job that you go home and walk away from. And Derek was a constituency man. If he came in on a Friday and I had a list of 30 people for him to call, he likely would be doing that Friday night. And, he never answered the phone with, MHA Derek Bragg. He'd go, "Hey, it's Derek," and that's how our office operated. But we're a very effective office, and that has, the testament to that is that Derek was reelected 3 times, and, we were together the whole way. We stuck together, and, when he was, when he was in hospital and I had to say goodbye to him, and I don't want to, I don't want to cry on open line, but, I thanked him. I thanked him for, his consideration of me as an employee. Derek was a big-time supporter of strong women in roles. He was very proud of his wife, Beverly, and his daughter, Allison, as nurses, and supported them. And, I know he would want me to do this. I've reached out to his family, and said, "What do you think?" And they said, "No question. Like, this is what he would want you to do. Uphold this district in the manner that we have been for the last 8 years."
Well, Dana, congratulations on throwing your hat in the ring. I wish it was under different types of circumstances. But it's going to be a very interesting Liberal nomination, and all the best to you and the others who have stepped forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, dear.
Alrighty. Bye-bye. Dana Blackmore running for the Liberal nomination in Fogo, Cape Friels. We'll be back right after the break. This is VOCM Open Line. Now is your opportunity to give us a call. And we are back on VOCM Open Line. Linda Swain in for Patty Daly, who is off today. We are going to go now to back to the district of Fogo, Cape Friels, but this is on a different type of issue. Hello, Carolyn Parsons.
Good morning, Linda.
How are you this morning?
I'm good. It's nice here today. The sun's almost out. So
Beautiful.
Good. Yes, back to the district. Well, it's interesting. I was listening to your previous caller, and Derek Bragg, of course, tremendous loss to the district. And on a personal note, I remember when he first got elected, I was talking to him, and I said, Derek, now there's one thing you have to remember, that around these parts, the F word is ferry. And so he had a great laugh at that. But that's what I'm calling in about today, is the ferry. So I thought that was an interesting little anecdote. But yeah, we've had a problem with the schedule change that was sort of just thrust upon us here, affecting the Change Islands portion of the run. And so that's what I want to talk about this morning.
Right on.
So anyway, I can't give you exactly the day, but one day last week, a new schedule was presented, posted as, a new schedule for the ferry. Now, the schedule that was in place is a previous schedule that's been in place for a long time. We have one vessel in the winter, and it runs on a pretty direct schedule. So the veteran's gone on refit, and she's been replaced by the Labrador ferry. And she's, she has great capacity, but my understanding is she was having trouble keeping to this particular schedule. She's different for docking and loading and things like that. So they were trying to work at a schedule that would work for the ferry, for the people, for both islands, right? But the schedule that came down really only impacts negatively the Change Islands run. And basically they've removed a very pivotal midday run that, is going to cause a lot of disruption for a lot of people. They haven't done it for every day. Right now it's down to 2 days, but even those 2 days, if that's the day your medical appointment falls on or it's going to impact, it's the day our garbage truck comes, it's just a really unusual schedule, and it also very confusing because we can't see how this fixes the claim that they can't keep to their usual schedule, because the usual schedule is in place most of the rest of the week. So that's what we're kind of dealing with and working to try to get that reinstated and try to, figure out a compromise that works for both islands and works for the people and is suitable. And
so what's the reason for this reduction in service? Is it simply financial? Is the traffic there? What's the purpose behind it?
I can't see that it's financial, since the ferry, so I don't know if you're familiar with the route, but the ferry bypasses Change Islands to go to Fogo. So she just stops into Change Islands, goes to Fogo Island, comes back, comes to Change Islands, goes to Farewell. So now she's just not stopping in. She's just going on by. So that's not, a big time difference, and it's not a big, I don't know if it's any cost difference. I mean, it's the same fuel. She's just going directly. So that part I can't see it being. We were told, and I've heard, that it's because they couldn't keep to the schedule, and they wanted a schedule that the ferry could keep to, but this doesn't fix that. So we're a little baffled onto why they changed it at all, and why they couldn't just tweak the schedule each day in order to be able to fit, the run in. If they had to, if it's 15 minutes every time, then add 15 minutes, wherever it needs to go. But removing 2 trips a week to Change Islands doesn't really fix that. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's an odd thing. And those 2 trips, like I said, they are midday and they really impact travelers. So, people go to Fogo, for instance, for their medical appointment in the morning and come back on that trip. And vice versa. People come from Fogo that work here and go back on that trip. So it's sort of, then you have to stay the whole length of the day for something that maybe took you 20 minutes in the doctor's office instead of being able to, take half a day. And, we know that, it's going to take that long when you're living on an island. There's some inconvenience, and you put up with that for the advantages. But it's just very baffling, and, we don't understand it, and we really need to get it fixed because this is just not workable for this island.
And it amounts, I guess, to another difficulty or blow for Change Islands. Like you say, people who live on an island are, weigh those consequences against where they live, if you know what I mean, those inconveniences. But
right.
It doesn't make it easy for, attracting further immigration, if you will, or keeping people there, or healthcare, or whatever the case may be, business.
Right, and right now at the moment, the place is doing well. It's vibrant. People are participating in all sorts of activities. There's a fish plant. There's not this sort of despair going on or anything like that. They're really. And we could understand if there was a valuable reason and if it appeared to fix something, but it really appears to break something. And it doesn't appear to remedy what they've said is the overall problem. And so, we don't understand that, and it's like, why are you inconveniencing so much of the traveling public at a pivotal time for the problem that you stated? But this doesn't fix that problem, So we did have a protest yesterday morning, and we just delayed the ferry for a little while to sort of make our discontent known. We had a great turnout. I think there was probably 50 people that showed up to express their concern about this, and we will do it again if need be, because we need to get this remedied in some sort of way. And our council is working on it. They did not approve of this, and they're working their channels to try to talk to people and see if we can come up with a good compromise. Change Islands is willing to compromise, to make a schedule that's workable for all. But that midday trip really needs to remain for the benefit of the traveling public that use it. And it's Friday, Sunday, those are days, those are weekend days, right, that a lot of times when people are working here, those are the days when they would use that. And again, with medical appointments, you don't get to choose, and we don't understand why the schedule that works Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday doesn't work on Friday. That's the thing that's a little unusual. And yeah, we're just trying to, like I said, get an equitable ferry schedule. And I know it's temporary. This ferry has the capacity. She's very big. This is the off season, so there's not as many travelers, and she's just sailing on by. It's very confusing. And also, the fact that they gave the schedule and implemented it the following day, there were a lot of people stuck because they weren't aware that there had been a change.
Right.
So,
well, maybe we'll try and get the transportation minister on to explain, the decision-making there.
I would love to know what the decision-making was and how this became the solution to a problem, the way that it was stated. Maybe I don't understand what the problem was, but that would be because they've not stated what that issue is and why this solves it and how this solves it. But right now, we don't have those answers. So if you could get them, that would be fantastic.
Carolyn Parsons, I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Linda.
All righty. Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye.
We're going to go now to the NDP leader, Jim Dinn. Hello, Jim.
Hello, Linda.
I understand you want to talk about the teachers' think tank.
Yes, and I guess to me, if this were the first time that a committee or had been formed by government to address a serious issue, I might be more hopeful as to the outcome, but it's not. We've had multiple reports, committees over the years, which basically I would argue identified the problem that needs to be addressed, and government has failed to address or has actually contributed to it. In the end, Linda, you talk to any teacher, and that any teacher, they want to be able to do their job to the best of their professional ability and have the resources to do that. And that job basically is to, when you look at whether it's the social, emotional, intellectual learning of their students, to make sure that their students become the best possible people and have the best possible opportunities. And I would argue that parents want to make sure that, and I'm a parent myself and grandparent, want to make sure that the children, my children, have the best possible opportunities and best possible learning conditions. And certainly students themselves want to succeed. But here we have, I guess, we've seen an increase in mental health issues. We've heard whether it's violence in the classroom, whether it's disruptions and demands, you name it. And I don't know how many times government has to be told to what needs to be done to make the conditions better before they actually take meaningful action. And I really can't help but think that, having yet another committee when there have been so many reports committees, even ones that they have brought in since they've been elected, whether it's the Premier's task force, whether it's the allocation committee, you name it. The fact is, it's time to actually take meaningful action to address issues in the classroom. And if it's about retention and recruitment of teachers, recruitment and retention, then a lot of these measures will take care of that issue as well.
Were you part of that, or were you privy to any of the conversations that were held there?
No, I've heard in terms of the some of the comments about, from what I gather, the minister heard directly from teachers, but government has been hearing directly from teachers for quite a while now. I think what teachers want to see is not necessarily, another committee to address retention and recruitment, but actually meaningful measures. I'm hopeful, I guess, too, the fact that at least the president of the association co-chairs that, because he'll bring that experience to the table. But I'm not sure if government is going to listen. So I think in many ways we've heard plenty of stories in the last bit about some of the challenges, significant challenges in the classroom. And I think it still comes down to when you look at going back 20 years ago to a report by David Diven, it's about time. That's exactly what it's about. It's about time. It's about looking at the composition of the classroom and the teacher allocation there, because that's the first thing. Obviously the larger the class, the more complex the needs in that class, the less time that teacher has to focus on students who need the help. So it's pretty straightforward as to the more students, the less time per student that a teacher has. And
that's 20 years ago. How much have things changed since then? We had COVID. We've had this influx of immigration. I'm still hearing stories about children coming here from outside this country, Ukraine and Syria, and they're just sort of sitting in the back of the classroom looking at their phones.
And that's one of the things during COVID I would bring up to then Minister Osborne about the need for EAL teachers, English as another language, because it's not only about learning the language, it's also making up for any educational deficits that in some cases children that are coming to the school system may not have had experience with the school system, or if they're coming from a war zone, you look at the trauma that goes with it. So these are the issues that teachers are dealing with, that the school community is dealing with. So from my point of view, as a former teacher, as a former president of the association, as a person who still has friends in the system, and that it comes down to how do you give the teachers the one thing that they need most of, and probably the most important resource is time. And I can think of addressing, when you look at teacher allocation, look at the needs of the children in the classroom. Secondly, I would argue that maybe when it comes to supervision, if you could look at removing the demands of supervision from teachers so that they will spend that time in for their own instructional, educational purposes, for either meeting with students, speaking to parents, you name it. That's the other thing. And I would argue one other thing, if you want to put more people into the system. Right now we have a number of units. It was there when I was president. It was there when I was a teacher. Teaching units that are 0.25, or in some cases I remember 0.1, what I would call fractional units. So you've got a half-time teacher or a quarter-time teacher in the school. Well, maybe it's about time to look in terms of if you want to keep teachers in the system, make sure that all units are full-time positions, and those resources will not go astray in the school system, and it will benefit students in the long run. And certainly, and in the end, it's going to give, I think, teachers that sense, okay, that we're making progress, that we're able to do the job that we're hired to do. That's a key part to recruitment and retention as well.
Jim Dinn, I appreciate your call this morning. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Take care.
All right. Bye-bye. And Dave, we're good to go. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we hope to speak with you. And we are back. We're going to go now to Pat. You're on the air. Hi, Pat. Hello, Pat.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello. This is not Pat. You might have the wrong.
Oh, I'm so sorry. This is line 2. Hello, line 2.
Yes. Hello, Linda. This is Miles Russell. I'm running for Ward 4 in City St. John's Council.
Oh, very good.
Don't know if you need to talk to the Pat person first. That's fine with me. Or if I'm here, I guess we can chat.
No, let's do it.
Also, congratulations on being with VLCM and doing the work for quite a long tenure.
I suppose. Bye.
Yeah, and I heard about you guys had made a report there this morning about Debbie Hanlon, one of the at-large councillors in St. John's, so sad to hear that.
Concerning for sure, yeah. We wish her the best.
Yeah, so no, what I wanted to chat about today was what I'm hearing, I want to chat about what I'm hearing from residents, and a big part of my platform. I want to talk about public transit today. So Metro Bus in St. John's, if that's fine to chat about for a little bit. We have a lot of issues with Metro Bus transit in the Metro region. We have a lot of residents who, in Ward 4 specifically, but St. John's in general, but Ward 4 has a lion's share of transit usage with MUN and a lot of students in the area. We have a good few issues with the difficulty in paying for Metro Bus. You can't pay on the bus like in other major cities with like an Interact tap or anything like that. St. John's, our bus routes run very unpredictably. Some routes run hourly, not a great service to have. But even the Route 1 in its express mode, you really have to dig into the schedule to see exactly when it's running. Sometimes the bus runs every 10 minutes. For small windows of the day, then it's 35 minutes. Sometimes it's 20 minutes. So it's really hard to guess when the bus is going to come there and pick you up. And I know Route 1's a pretty big core route across the city.
Now, they are apparently looking into all of these issues because, of course, ridership has just exploded in the last couple of years. So they're trying to address all of these things. And, of course, with rapid growth comes some pretty big challenges.
Yeah, and it's kind of sad, honestly, Linda, that the city went ahead and said, great, you have record ridership. You've made a bunch of extra money from, having higher ridership numbers. So we're going to cut the funding. So, I can understand the logic being like the city didn't want to have to raise taxes to make that $1.5 million windfall. But there are other methods of, generating revenue that don't involve taxation. For example, reassessing how Mount Pearl and Paradise and Portugal Cove St. Phillips pay for water and sewer. That's a really hard, tangly document to go over, and it's really hard to nail down the actual numbers. That hasn't been reassessed in a while. But like going back to Metrobus now, the city could have, right now there's an 18-month lag on buying bus hardware. The city, to take that money away, that's potentially 6 to 8 more buses running, and that's purchased, owned, and operating for several years. And to take that away is honestly a bad move. And then, in the wintertime, we've had record snowfall obviously a little better now with the warm weather. But, if we're to look at actually accessing the bus stops, sidewalk clearing notwithstanding, the city has actually lost covered stops in the last 20 years. They've removed more stops, but they've added over 100 stops. They've removed more covered stops, but they've added over 100 actual stops with the Paradise line getting added on and a couple expansions in the East End and that on a few bus expansions, and then adding the bus for Galway. But they've actually removed the total number of covered stops. So it's really not a great look the way the city is managing Metrobus, and really the city of St. John's doesn't manage Metrobus. You probably already know it ran through the Metrobus Commission, and the Metrobus Commission is very opaque. They're a hard organization to chat to. They're a hard organization to get information out of. Really, if we're going to make any progress, I think St. John's, Mount Pearl, and Paradise need to get together, and probably even with other municipalities. This needs to be a more regionalized system, and it needs to be properly planned.
So that's, of course, a very important issue. But what are you hearing from constituents in the district, in the ward?
That the bus is simply not dependable, and it's not something they can rely on. If you're trying to get across town, even from an area well connected like Ward 1 around Munn, or Ward 4 around Munn, you're going to have a hard time to get to a lot of locations if you aren't taking one of the core routes, the Route 1, the Route 2, the Route 3, and the Route 10. If you're not taking those zip buses and you need to go anywhere off that line, you're essentially at the gamble of bus delays. Depending on where you're going, if you're not going along those core routes, essentially Metrobus is non-functional. You could be an hour to an hour and a half getting to anywhere. And especially people who depend on Metrobus, if you're not in Ward 4, if you're not in the center of, the core of St. John's or downtown, if you're someone who lives in, say, Mount Pearl and you need to get to a hospital and then maybe get groceries and then get back to Mount Pearl, that's a whole day. That could be a day lost if you miss one single transfer, or if your bus gets delayed at the Village Mall. You can ask, but especially in the winter now, St. John's, for the metropolitan area we don't have a single bus-only lane. We don't have a single bus-only turn. We have a single intersection where there's a priority lane, but that bus still gets stuck in traffic on Freshwater Road right in the middle of Ward 4. And really, there's no planning. Honestly, Linda, it's kind of shocking. My advocacy work, we've done a lot of analysis with staff of Metrobus who are fantastic to deal with and work with, the drivers and the staff that work there. But the actual commission that controls it are frustratingly difficult to chat with and to get information out of. And the lack of planning in basically 20 years of Metrobus is truly going to hamper the ability for St. John's and the metro area to grow public transit. And that's a core tenet of climate action, is to provide an alternative that is functional. And right now it's really not. And a lot of residents of Ward 4 who do depend on it, it's at their detriment in a lot of times, and it really shouldn't be. It should be a dependable, reliable, frequent system that runs. And we can do it with what we already have, just needs to be properly planned.
Miles, I do appreciate your call this morning. Thanks very much.
All right, cheers, appreciate it.
All righty. Bye-bye.
Cheers, bye.
That's Miles Russell. He is a candidate in the by-election in Ward 4 in the capital city. When we come back, we're going to talk travel nurses. This is VOCM Open Line. We'd like to hear from you. And we are back, and we're going to go now to Pat on line 3. Hello, Pat.
Hi, Linda. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Not too bad, thank you. Linda, I'm calling regarding travel nursing. I had the unfortunate visit to the emergency department at the Health Science. I've been there twice now in about 6 months. what would I have done only for the travel nurses? What would I have done? There were 7 travel nurses working in emergency that night. 7. They were fantastic. Their outwit, their excellent, their professional mannerism, their knowledge. I can't say enough good about them. But having said that, our nurses are as well just as good. You know what I'm saying? But looking back 20 years ago, if anybody had the insight of what was going to happen 20 years down the road, a lot of this could have been prevented. There was a time, I'm a retired nurse, by the way, there was a time when you couldn't buy a nurse. There was no vacancies anywhere. 2 of my daughters are nurses, and they both had to leave this province. And between 1990 and 1998, there was absolutely no work. So the government knew at that time that things were starting to change. Now here we are, 20 years later. We have no nursing. We have no housing. There's a problem with the schools. There's a problem with transportation. There's a problem with every issue that you want to mention. Everybody seems to be unhappy.
So we were driving nurses away in the 1990s, is what you're saying?
Oh, yes. My youngest daughter had to go to Halifax to work, and she was there 3-4 years, and she finally got a position here in St. John's. There was no, even when I graduated from nursing, and that wasn't yesterday, even when I graduated, there was lots and lots of nurses. You could pick your hours, Linda. I could say I work 4 hours today, 8 hours tomorrow, 12 hours the next day. I could pick my hours, pick my schedule. Now they were called then casual nurses. Now there's still casual nurses who are working, who have graduated from our hospital in St. John's, who still prefer to work casual because they're getting full-time hours, and they're getting, they don't have to work unless they want to, so they can pick their hours. Every benefits that the regular nurses get, they get because they get paid in lieu of. Now, I can tell you now that a lot of nurses, our own nurses, I'll say our own for want of a better word, our own nurses are leaving the profession. There are so many nursing opportunities now outside the realm of the hospital. A lot of the doctors have nurses working with them. Not all nurse practitioners, regular nurses. I know several doctors that have nurses working with them. They do the triage, okay, in the doctor's office, and when I go in to see the doctor, then the doctor has all this information, so he uses information to try and diagnose me, right? So 20 years ago, they knew what was going to happen 20 years from now. So now poor Andrew Fury is in there. Everything was thrown at him. There's so much work to be done, and now there's no money, there's no nurses, the teachers aren't getting the professionalism they need to carry out their daily duties. It's just one big mess. One big mess, isn't it?
Well, I really appreciate the benefit of your experience in this area, and we're up to news time now. But we're going to hear more about travel nurses, and nobody's saying that the work that they do isn't important and that they're not doing a good job. It's the way that the whole structure, and as you just rightly pointed out, the whole structure is sort of off kilter somehow. So we're going to hear more from the Registered Nurses Union a little later in the show. So stay tuned for that.
And I'm sure that who's president of the Nurses Union, I'm sure that she will agree with me, because you see it every day, Linda, and it's very sad. Very, very sad.
Pat, stay well. I really appreciate your call. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda, very much.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
We're up to news time now. You're listening to VOCM Open Line. Now is your opportunity to give us a call. And we are back, and we're going to go now to Mary, who's on the air. Hello, Mary.
Oh, hi, Linda. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Linda, I just want to speak briefly about the way, I know there's nothing anybody can do about this, but the drivers in this town, I guess as everywhere, are so bad, you're taking your life in your hands going out. I watch it all the time, Linda, and I coming into work this morning, I just saved myself from being hit from someone going through a red light. And I live on Thorburn Road, and Saturday evening I was out doing a bit of shovel, and you would not believe the people that went through the red light there on Larkall and O'Leary Avenue. It's unreal. It's unreal how they're getting away with it, and I never see anybody stopped on Thorburn Road. Never.
It is
Never.
remarkable to see how
It
is remarkable to see how people's patience level on the roads has just evaporated completely. You see it every day.
Well, you know, Linda, I'm surprised there's not more people killed, because there's after been a few accidents up on top of the hill there toward Marie's, and I think a couple of people killed. But I can tell you right now, Linda, it's a real racetrack in on Thorburn Road, a racetrack from Columbus Drive up to O'Leary Avenue. It's a racetrack. Even all night long, you hear the roaring and everything. But like I always made a practice driving that I never took off right away when the light turned green for safety's sake. And how often am I after trying to save myself?
So what's the solution? How do we slow traffic in some of these problem areas?
Well, I don't really know, Linda. I guess it's all over. I see it every day. Every day, every morning I come to work. Every day I'm going home. I just try to save myself. Not only me, but I'm sure there's a good many more do too. You know, I see it because I'm driving. But I think, like, Thorburn Road is a racetrack, especially since they built the new bypass road up there. It's just like a racetrack. You know, and I mean, it's all over town, really, because I don't drive very much, but I do go different places, and I think it's just terrible, terrible. You know. But like I said, I never see anybody stopped in Thorburn Road. Now, you can't have a policeman on every corner, but if a policeman or anybody sat in the mall parking lot just a half a day, I'll guarantee you they'd see what's going on.
Mary, I do appreciate your call. Have you raised these issues with City Council, for instance?
No, I didn't. Because sometimes, you know, they're in one ear and out the other. They'll say they're listening to you, but they don't pay attention like everything else. They just let it go, and that's it. It's like when they were building that new...
Hello? Mary?
What's going on? Hello?
Yeah, sorry, you cut out there. You said when they were building that new, and then you went...
The new entertainment centre over in the mall. Mm-hmm. I didn't know what was going on. It was like something going up the driveway. So one night I got up and here they were banging. Oh my God, what a racket when they were building that. But if I went to build something, I did report it to the mall, but they just said council gave them the permission. But I'll guarantee you they wouldn't give me permission to do it. It's ridiculous. So I wouldn't be bothered reporting anything to council at all. I'll just go and put up with it and deal with it, and that's it. Well, Linda, listen, I'm happy that I got through to you, and thank you very much for listening.
All right. Thank you, Mary.
Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye. We're going to go now to Agnes. You're on the air. Hello, Agnes.
Good morning.
How are you this morning?
Well, not so bad, girl.
That's
not
good.
So bad. I'm calling about, I got a vehicle, so I have auto insurance. I moved from my home to a new residence, like a senior's cottage, and of course I wanted the papers to show my address. It took me 2 full days to reach them by phone. Well, actually, it was the third day. No answers. So I went from Pasadena to Corner Brook, went to the office in Corner Brook, to the insurance company, and the sign in the door says open Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. This was in the middle of the day. No one, the lights were out, and no one in the office. So when I finally, the third day, when I finally reached somebody, they told me the office had been closed since COVID.
And a sign in the window.
And a sign in the window saying open Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. No sign to say this office is closed. And it's ridiculous. Like, I mean, we're paying our insurance premiums, and they didn't have the courtesy to let their clients know that the office is closed, and if you need this and need that. Now, the person that I reached, I couldn't ask to be any nicer when I finally reached somebody. But it took me like just about 3 days to reach somebody. Phoning every half an hour or so, I'd make the phone call. It's ridiculous.
And there was nothing on the voicemail to indicate, that they were closed, or there may be a wait, or...
No, nothing. Nothing. There was nothing. Every time it was press 1 for this, or press 5 for that, or press whatever. But never reached a person, and nothing to tell me why I never reached a person.
Yeah.
Or nothing even to say, leave your number and we'll call you back. Anyway, I think the last time, the third day, I think this was a week or probably 2 weeks ago now, because actually I got the papers yesterday in the mail. So anyway, but it's ridiculous. Like, you're paying your premiums, you're paying the highest kind of premiums for insurance, and 90% of them are working from home, and there's not much,
It's I hear your frustration, because customer service has, I don't know what happened to customer service. Part of it was COVID, I suppose, but a lot of agencies and organizations are moving to this online digital type of format, and you're never clear if you're dealing with a person. You're never clear if the information that you've conveyed has been dealt with properly. There are nuances to issues, oftentimes with insurance companies and various agencies and departments. You only have contact with them maybe once a year, if that. You know what I'm saying? So it's not like you have a continuous flow of information going back and forth. When you need your issue dealt with, you need it dealt with in a timely manner, and you're just calling looking for information. And sometimes, as you just pointed out, you get this frustrating runaround. I don't know what's happened, but it doesn't feel right.
It's not, Anna. They say Newfoundland is a senior-friendly community, but it's not. It's not. And the older you get, the more, of course, the less technicality you want to run into. And you run into it all the time. And nothing. Like there's, that's another issue, this senior thing, because there's not everybody got a computer.
No, and not everybody is comfortable doing things online. Sometimes there are nuances to what you want done that, the very formatted black and white kind of digital format doesn't allow for.
A lot of things, even if you get a phone book now, of course, not many get a phone book, but if you should get one, you can't read it. Print is too small. But anyway, I just thought I'd call and see what's going on. I don't expect anything to be done about it, because to my mind now, there's not much is done about anything, are they? Like the 24th of January, I was at the hospital to get my knee operated on. It got canceled. 10 minutes before the surgery came in, it got canceled. Well, now I'm due for that surgery again, the 28th of this month. So hopefully it's going to go through. But we will see. Yeah.
Agnes, all the best to you. I appreciate your call this morning. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Alrighty.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Your thoughts on what Agnes has had to say, by all means, do give us a call. We're up to a break. Now is your opportunity to pick up the phone. And we are back. We're going to go now to Daniel Rose in Port-au-Port. Hello, Daniel.
Good morning, Ms. Swain. Hope you're well.
Oh, good. How are you?
Oh, fine, thanks.
That's good.
I'm calling about transportation on the Port-au-Port Peninsula.
All right.
We don't have any.
Okay. What are you looking for?
Looking for some kind of transportation to Stephenville, you know?
Like a bus service or a taxi
service,
or
yes.
what?
Bus service, yeah. We can't take a taxi. A taxi costs you about $126 to go to town and shop for groceries. You know, it's only 20 miles.
Have there been bus services, private bus services that have taken people back and forth in the past?
Yeah, in the past, yeah, about 15, 20 years ago. You know? I phoned Tony Wickham's office on this, and he pretty well told me, when he gets in his premier for 3 months, he might help me out. But, they get bus services from St. George's and Flat Bay and the crossing coming to Stephenville, all the way out to Port-au-Port East. And there's only 10 more miles, and it's not here.
And are those privately provided, or?
No, I think it's the government, but that's who got it, I think.
I see. So like you say, just another 10 miles and
yes.
Everybody be happy? Would that service the entire region?
I guess. You know where Port Abbott's is in Port-au-Port Beach?
I don't, unfortunately.
You don't, eh?
Not familiar with the Port-au-Port Peninsula.
Yeah, Port-au-Port Peninsula, but he comes as far as Port-au-Port East, which joins on to the Port-au-Port Peninsula.
Okay.
And they turn around there, right?
Oh, I see, yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know who to call for something like that.
So, yeah, and you've obviously had occasion when you need that kind of a service.
Oh, yeah, well, I go to town at least three times a month anyway, right?
And how do you do it now? Do you just, get a ride with friends or family?
Well, I have to hitchhike, tell you the truth.
Really?
Yeah, I do, yeah, because there's no taxi services out here either, right? Mm-hmm. And you know what I'm saying? If I call a taxi in from town out, that's one trip, and I got to get another one to come back out and go back again, right? That's 2 trips, right?
Yeah, incredibly expensive. Is that covered in any way?
No.
Yeah.
I'm on old age pension, so.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you'd like to see some form of a taxi service, or not taxi service, but bus service, if you will, on the Port-au-Port Peninsula.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Yeah. Well, Daniel, thanks for raising it. Hopefully we hear what others have to say.
Okay, thanks, Mrs. Smith.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, bye-bye. Your thoughts on what Daniel's had to say, give us a call. We're going now to Mary Shortle, president of the New Democratic Party. Hello, Mary.
Hi, Linda. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, too. Today's a good day to be a New Democrat, that's for sure.
Why do you say that?
Well, I wanted to talk today about the pharmacare announcement that was made. We had our very first council meeting just Saturday, and our leader, Jagmeet Singh, came on to give us some of the details around this. And it's absolutely something that our party, and even in my former life as an activist, have been fighting for a long, long time, and that's a universal pharmacare program. That means that people can finally afford a lot of the medication that they haven't been taking because they couldn't afford it. It's a real affordability issue, and it really addresses the cost of living. But most important, it is, a pathway to single-payer, universal prescriptions for people right across the country, no matter where they live, no matter what. And in the meantime, it also has concrete measures to help Canadians who are struggling with the cost of contraceptive medication and diabetes medication, which is 2 huge issues, and it's a really important piece of legislation. We were so excited to hear about it. It's been a long time coming. We know it's affordable. I know some people raise concerns about the affordability of it, but the Dr. Eric Hoskins report and the other reports that have come out have said, how can we not afford to do it? For many different reasons, because it's good for our population, and it's an equity issue that makes sure that people can can get the drugs that they need when they need it. But also, just from an economic point of view, collectively, it's a lot more affordable when you can buy drugs at bulk pricing, for example. So when the drugs are bought at the economies of scale, it's going to keep the cost of prescription drugs down. The government reports have shown over and over again that the best way to make sure we can afford this is by having it universal, and that's really good. The other cost savings for sure for provinces and the territories and for our economy is the burden off the healthcare system, because we know, at minimum 20% of our population who can't afford their medication are becoming sicker because of that, because they're either not taking them or they're sharing them or they're just ignoring their healthcare concerns like diabetes, for example, and the cost of looking after that. And they end up in hospital or they end up becoming very sick. And overall, there's cost savings. It's good for all segments of our population and addresses some of these affordability issues and cost of living issues. And it's something that the New Democrats and the labor movement and coalition groups like the Coalition for Healthcare, healthcare professionals have been fighting for, and they all believe and understand that it's something that we desperately need. And in fact, it's something that should have happened when our public healthcare system came about, but it didn't at the time. And now, 60 years later, we can finally celebrate it.
But what is the cost? Any estimate on what it's going to cost overall to implement this type of program countrywide?
Well, there's lots of reports that come out. The best report is the one that Dr. Hoskins did, and the Liberal government seconded Dr. Hoskins to do that. He was the health minister in the Ontario government at one time, and they, talk about the initial cost up front being about $7 billion. But if you go ahead and look at the report and look at year after year, the savings to people and to the country and to the healthcare system, it actually will save money over the long term. And if you look at some of the other countries, because most countries that have a public healthcare system, it also includes pharmacare, right? And so when you look at what happens in other countries, it just becomes part of the Canada Health Act. It becomes part of a whole healthcare system, and that economy of scale, or that bulk buying of prescriptions and having a healthier population and just making sure that the cost of prescriptions go down and then people can access them through the programs. It actually doesn't cost taxpayers more money over time. Yes, there's an initial cost up front to set it up, and the legislation has to be put in place. And the announcement that was made this week is this important, and I would say historic step towards the pharmacare program, because it has concrete measures in it about how they go forward on that, how they're going to develop it once the legislation is passed. But in the meantime, they've introduced the added benefit, I think, for a lot of people across this country of contraception and diabetes medication and some of the equipment that diabetes need for their day-to-day health.
So how will that work? Because, anybody who is working and has a health care plan from work, pays into that and gets access to a lot of these types of medications anyway. So how is this going to work? You say anybody who has a Medicare plan or a health card is eligible?
Well, the commitment that was made, and of course the details still have to be worked out, the commitment was made to make sure that the legislation is put in place. And so the legislation recognizes that the Canada Health Act and the terms of the Canada Health Act, and recognizes that this program will deliver single payer, which means universal prescriptions, right? It will commit the government to follow the recommendations of the Hoskins report. And a lot of those recommendations are actually written in the Hoskins report, how they might roll out with this. They also have to enter into negotiations with the provincial and territorial governments about that, because as we know, the fragmented system that we has each province has their own system and their own people who qualify and don't qualify. So they will have to work with the provinces in that. And the provinces, by and large, at least when I was doing the work on behalf of the labor movement, the provinces were on board because they recognize as well the cost savings to provincial economies and the provincial healthcare system. But it's a matter of setting up agreements with each of the provinces, and it also the agreement also guarantees that there will be an implementation council that will come together to provide the remaining answers and the details on the operation of the program. So none of those details have been worked out yet. Obviously, the announcement was just made. I think the historic and the celebratory part here that we can all understand is going to benefit all of us is that they have agreed to the principles of universality, and that was a very important issue for a lot of people, and that together they will put together that plan. But again, when you look at the Hoskins report, it does say that if you use a fill-in-the-gap plan, or if you use different plans based on what people have already in their drug plans or in their income levels or whatever, it does actually or could actually cost a lot more money. The best way to make it work and to make it work well within the system and to make it not cost governments billions of dollars in the years going forward is to make sure that it is universal. And so on a practical level, that's really important, but also on just how we address affordability issues, cost of living issues. You know, the drugs are really expensive. This country has one of the most expensive prescription drugs in the whole world. Those will be reduced for government buying, and it also will take that burden off people who really, I mean, some people are, even with health insurance plans, still pay an amount of money that they can't afford to pay to have their medication. And so overall, and all the research shows, and I think over time we'll see very clearly that it creates a healthier population, less burden on the healthcare system, a little bit extra money in people's pockets to spend on the other things that they're struggling with right now. When we look at people with diabetes and we look at people who really need contraception, that also is a benefit for groups of people in our population who very often struggle harder than others around affordability. And so it's an equity issue as well. Contraceptive, for example, will impact a lot of women. Statistically, women are often poorer in life, and so all those issues are good for equality. So I think two things: we can't afford not to do it from how we look at ourselves as a society, but we also can't afford not to do it as we look at our economy as well.
Mary, I appreciate your time this morning. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Linda, for giving me space. Bye now.
Bye-bye. And we're up to a break. When we come back, we're going to speak with the president of the Registered Nurses Union of Newfoundland and Labrador, Yvette Coffey, right after this. And we are back. We're going now to the president of the Registered Nurses Union of Newfoundland and Labrador, Yvette Coffey. Hello, Yvette.
Good morning, Linda.
How are you this morning?
Grand for a Monday morning.
That's good to hear. What's on your mind?
Well, tomorrow we've just put out a media advisory. We'll be hosting a rally at the Confederation building. We'll be rallying to demand government stop privatising healthcare and demand that the Auditor General investigate the massive amounts of dollars that have been poured and continue to be poured into the pockets of private businesses who are only concerned with maximizing their profits.
We had a call earlier in the show, I'm not sure if you heard it or not, from a retired nurse. Now, she's retired for quite some time, but she was saying that her own daughters had to leave the province back in the 1990s because there were no nursing positions to be had. So they left the system, and I'm sure many other nurses besides left the system. And now we're finding ourselves in this place now where a lot of nurses are retiring or aging out of the system, so to speak, and filling those gaps with these travel agency nurses. You've touched on this for a long time now. What are the solutions?
Well, we've already offered some solutions, and one of them we're working on. One is a travel locum that includes our public service unionized nurses, which we have with Labrador. We have a pilot ongoing now. It's been well over a year and a half. We've actually just extended it while we're doing the evaluation. And what it is nurses in Newfoundland and Labrador have the opportunity to apply for and go to Labrador for minimum of 2 weeks, and they'll get paid an extra $25 an hour, which still does not put them up to the $80 to $120 an hour that agency nurses are making. That's what they're actually making. Companies are making well over $300 an hour. For each agency nurse they provide to Newfoundland and Labrador. So that's one solution. It's been working. We're just waiting on the final evaluation. But it's actually a more cost-efficient way to staff the vacancies in Labrador region, more, hard to recruit areas. We've also talked about expanding that to the whole province in rural and remote areas. But we need to get that evaluation done first. One of the other things that we have talked about is putting a cap on the length of time a particular agency nurse can work in this province, just like out in Nova Scotia. Nova Scotia has a cap, I believe it's, I don't know if it's 60 days or 6 months. I think it's 60 days that a agency nurse can actually work in the province. And the reason we're asking for that, we're hearing the stories of agency nurses who've been working here now for 2 years. They've actually bought houses and then rent them out to the RHA, to the health authority, for other agency nurses while they're here. So a lot of people are making a big profit off the taxpayers' dollars of Newfoundland and Labrador.
So your rally is tomorrow at Confederation Building. What time?
12 noon. One of the other things is we'd like an investigation into a single sourcing of contract to Canadian health labs, and of course to look into how $1.6 million was paid to this company for meals for these agency nurses, and they did not see that. And in actual fact, we ended up paying them $100 per day per diem to assist with their meals and that. And we would also like to ensure, and I know there's been some controversy this week about students coming out saying they haven't been offered permanent full-time positions, and that recruiters were going back in. I think government and the health authorities need to be more consistent with their approach and the information that they're giving to student nurses. Yes, there's some of it that is, you're offered a permanent job in Goose Bay. No, my family's here. I don't want to move to Goose Bay. I want a permanent job in St. John's or in Corner Brook, whatever. Yes, that's part of it. But also look at being more open and transparent with all the incentives that are being offered, because I think we fell down on the job in Newfoundland and Labrador, and that students don't actually know what the bonuses and incentives are for these rural, remote and Labrador regions, and that needs to be disclosed to them early on in year 4 when they're selecting where they're going to be applying for positions and that. So we need to be listening and working with students. And one of the big things for me is nurse practitioners. I've been since August, since we got our collective agreement and signed it, talking to government about having nurse practitioners paid to the level that they should be paid, and working on doing a joint process to get them up on the classification scale. I just feel like I'm going one step forward, 2 steps back with that process. It's been over 6 months, and it's time to call a spade a spade. If you're really interested and committed to working with us on this, something has to be done in a lot quicker and more concrete manner for us.
Yvette Coffey, I do appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Linda.
Alrighty. Bye-bye. Yvette Coffey is the president of the Registered Nurses Union of Newfoundland and Labrador. We're going to another union leader now, the president of the Newfoundland and Labrador Teachers Association, Trent Langdon. Hello.
Hi, Linda. Good morning. Nice to speak to you.
Oh, good. It's good to speak to you as well. So a teachers' think tank was held on Friday. What was that all about?
Yeah, absolutely. That's why I'm calling in. But first of all, I'd like to offer my support to Yvette and the nurses. We certainly support what they're doing. Anytime you stand up for your members is an important thing. And a week in public service, whether you're talking nurses, teachers, police officers, that's where we are in this province right now. So first of all, support for them. And that's all I'll say on that point, I guess. But off to the think tank. That was held on Friday, and it was a great opportunity for our members to have their voice heard. Usually they go through the association, and I speak for them in terms of what I hear. But the actual teachers themselves were able to give their lived experience and to bring forward what their deep concerns were.
Well, we often say that on Open Line or in the newsroom. You know, people will say, well, you can report on that. No, it's much more impactful when it comes straight from the person who is there living it.
Yes.
So what kind of stories were heard?
It was heavy, Linda, to be honest. We had, ultimately the way it was set up is we chose 7 teachers from around the province. And obviously we took into consideration geography, time in the system, gender, and we wanted to make sure it was representative of the membership. And they all gave their lived experience. Most of them spoke between 10 15 minutes, and many cried. It was so overwhelming. They gave their true story about how they can only do so much with what they're given. And every day they feel as if they're walking out of schools, wishing they could do more. Also, we had individuals tell about their experience of being assaulted in their classrooms, and those teachers who feel that day in, day out is just a triage. So it was very heavy. As well, what hasn't got a whole lot of attention is all of our teachers in the province had an opportunity to submit a survey. Of our 6,500 members or so, 2,200 took the time to do the survey. So a third of our membership sent the survey. So a huge amount of information that's coming from that as well.
So do you hope now that this is going to have some kind of an impact or that action will be taken?
Well, we're getting reassurances. I actually just got off the line with the minister, and we were doing an interview for VOCM, as I'm sure you're aware, just speaking about that. And I really do feel we were heard. We've been touting and saying this for many years, that this is an issue, or there are issues in the system that are so heavy right now that it's about how do we best serve all the children and all the needs that are in the system. There were some announcements on Friday related to how do we improve teachers' mental health in this province, which was good. There was one piece of the puzzle where there was a couple positions for our Francophone school district, as well as some extra student assistant time. That's ultimately where we need to see some major investment moving forward in terms of improving the working conditions for our teachers. The budget is around the corner. We need to see in that budget some substantial movement. As well, this education accord that was announced a few weeks back, the long-term plan of a 10-year plan, that's exactly where we need to be, but there needs to be some short-term and mid-term interventions that is obviously going to make some immediate change.
Do you expect to hear anything in the upcoming budget?
We certainly hope so, and that's the intent. Is that budget time is a key. There's a bunch of different things that are valuable to us as an association. Obviously, collective bargaining, any type of committee work where we can have our say. But budget time is an obvious one for every sector in the province. So there has to be some significant investment in this budget upcoming to say we're looking at the bigger picture. We need a needs-based model in this province, Linda. It's formula-based right now. I've seen in other provinces where, for example, you get a class, so you build your classes according to how many points, say, a child may have. And the way it looks is it's not a value system, but it's if a child with severe needs, for example, comes out as having 3 points, and a child who is a neurotypical learner will get 1 point. When you reach 30 points, that's when you top out. Some classes that might be 30 kids. Other classes, might be 10 or 15 children. So that type of system where where we can truly be set up to meet the needs of individual children. That's where we need. And this is the type of province, I believe, given its size, that we certainly can offer that kind of education for our kids.
Does that become problematic, though? I mean, how do you determine who is neurotypical and who doesn't have, something else going on in their life that affects their learning?
Well, we have a lot of documentation in this province on our children, and as a former guidance counselor, or still a guidance counselor, will be down the road returning, that's part of my job, is documentation on children, and we have tons of information related to diagnoses of previous educational interventions that have taken place. So the data exists. We're expected to do annual general returns on children in our schools every year. The information is out there. It may take a little bit more of management and organization and evaluation, but if we truly want to meet the needs of all these children where they are in their classroom, on the ground, there needs to be a fluid model. We can't say at the start of a school year, here's your allocation. It's going to be what it is till the end of the school year. There's only on certain occasions where ample time, and when I say ample time, significant time goes into making an appeal. The work that goes in on the part of administrators and teachers to make an appeal that they need more time, whether it's student assistant or instructional resource teacher time, is excessive. There needs to be a better model of analysis such that we can better meet the needs that are in the buildings.
Trent, we have to leave it there, I'm afraid, but I do appreciate your call this morning. Thank you very much.
Always a pleasure. Thanks, Linda.
Alrighty.
All right, thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. And we'll be back right after this. And we are back. We're going now to Tracy. You're on the air. Hi, Tracy. Hello, Tracy.
Hello.
Hi. You're far off in the distance there, Tracy.
Gotcha.
Yeah, but you're on hands-free, aren't you?
Yes, I am.
Are you able to pick up?
Do I have you now?
Yeah, there you go.
There you are. Sorry. Okay, I guess I was really touched by Agnes when she called this morning, the lady from Pasadena who had issues with her insurance. And it really bothers me that, companies today still have this COVID cop-out thing where your staff is not at work. And I guess I work with healthcare, and I was in work and have been at work during COVID. But that's over now. We got to live with COVID. And what really bothers me is, especially for seniors who, like she said, aren't tech savvy, who mightn't have a computer, who mightn't have a cell phone, who take the time to drive to the location where they think their service provider is actually operating, and are not. And I just don't get it. I just don't get it. A vast majority of people in Newfoundland are seniors, yet we expect them to, pick up their cell phone or on computer and have the time to do this. And for me, for this lady to have to drive from Pasadena to Corner Brook to find a sign on the door, which no one's bothered to change for the last 4 years, is bothersome. So, we talk about shopping local and doing all these things to help promote local businesses. So, my advice to anybody is to drive around Corner Brook to find out what insurance company actually has an office that's open and a desk person there, and maybe actually considering, switching your insurance there.
Well, it's an added cost for starters for a lot of seniors, many of whom probably don't have a cell phone or a Wi-Fi or whatever. I'm not saying that because you're a senior you don't have that, but there's a lot of people who have lived their lives without it and don't see a purpose in putting it, having that part of their lives. So there's cost that comes with that. And of course, with the tech companies and the like, the cost is not cheap in some cases.
Right.
So you have to pay that added cost for something that you're not comfortable using, that you don't find very efficient, and is more frustrating than not for a lot of people.
I'm 57. I mean, I could take my cell phone and computer, biff it out the window any day of the week, because that's how business works today. You have to call and you have to wait, or there's a long line, or your call gets sent overseas somewhere, and then, oh my God, they can't understand what you're saying. You can't understand what they're saying. And chances are this billing in Corner Brook is still existing and being paid for by the customers that go to that company. right? And but it's not only this insurance company, it's everywhere how everything is dealt with today, with our provincial government, with our federal government, whoever you reach out to. It's, because of COVID, we've gone to a work from home method. Like, yeah, that must be great to sit at home in your pajamas and stick on a roast for supper and throw a load of clothes in and not have to shovel out your car like the rest of us. But at the end of the day, the person who needs to serve, it's not about the worker. We have to be there to serve people. And the quality of client services and customer services has gone down the proverbial tube because we're expecting a laptop and a cell phone to do it for us. And you're right, my mother is 83. She doesn't have a computer. She doesn't have a cell phone. It's not that she can't operate it. She just don't want it. So that responsibility goes off to my sister. But, I mean, there's lots of people who don't have family. And then we're talking about senior scams. So, like, come on, like, companies around that should have an office open, you can do better. And do better is by updating the sign on your door says, by the way, we closed it 4 years ago in COVID. Right?
Tracy, you're speaking very passionately about this.
I'm ticked off. I'm just ticked off. I'm just, like, really ticked off about it, right? Like, you know, I'm on the cusp of being senior. I look at my mother and how frustrated she gets when she's trying to reach somebody or get hold of somebody, and it's all, even our federal governments, you know, she can't even go to an office in Corner Brook anywhere to say and have someone help her through it. You have to rely on somebody who has a computer or a phone. So, I mean, she's fortunate enough, my sister's in Corner Brook, but what about the next person who doesn't? I mean, the demographics is changing. You know, we're one generation away from no one having a relative because you're having one or no kids. So who's helping out all these people? And my mother's fortunate. She lives in Corner Brook. There's a little service hub. But what about you're up the coast? Or what about you're from Stephenville? And you say, oh, I'm going to drop into the insurance company now when I'm in town. Guess what? You roll up to the door, and there's a sign on the door. Oh, our workers are working from home. Well, give me your address. Maybe I can drop up and see if she can answer the door and answer a question for me. And I know I'm being really sarcastic, but, I mean, I've just had it with this COVID bullshit and people working from home and adequate services not being provided, and we're relying on a computer and a laptop and a cell phone instead of servicing people in person.
Tracy, you've laid it all out in pretty black and white form. I want to hear what others have to say about it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Alrighty.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Tracy has had enough of this COVID cop-out, as she calls it, and a lack of customer service. What are your thoughts? I'd like to hear what you have to say. A lot of people do like the flexibility of being able to work from home. A lot of companies wanted to see workers back in the workforce, but there seems to be this nice, I suppose, melding of in-person and work-from-home type of scenarios that a lot of people do happen to like. But if you're looking for service, she just said she's not too happy about it. I want to hear what others have to say. By all means, do give us a call. We're going to go now to Gwen. You're on the air. Hi, Gwen.
No, it's the wrong one again.
Oh, I'm sorry. Who's this?
Roz.
Oh, hi, Roz.
Hi. Good morning. Yes, I agree with her. I'm a senior myself. I'm expected to have a computer. I haven't got one. I haven't got cable. You know, like I said, I haven't got a cell phone. I got to depend on my children, which I don't want to do. To depend on my children. I like to be independent, but the system is after screwing that up.
Do you find more and more now you have to rely on your children to help you out with things that you previously didn't have to?
They haven't got the time. They got families of their own, and they're working full-time just like I did myself. I work full-time. And the part is, like I said, even with the healthcare, there's more than just nurses and doctors out there. There are also people that clean up the floors. They're not respected by a lot of people. And the same, there's lab technicians out there. There's lab workers out there. There is a lot of people that are not respected in the healthcare system. And I never worked in the healthcare system. But I'm telling you now, when I go for blood work or anything, the stuff that these lab workers and that got to put up with, it's unreal. And they get no respect at all. Like I said, there's more than doctors and nurses out there, and they gotta learn how to have respect for each other too in the system. You know, not all of these doctors and nurses got respect for the lab workers and that either. And I've seen that for myself when I went to the hospital and that. And like I said, there's a lot of people in the healthcare system that get very, very little respect from anybody. And it's get me and do me and give me and do it now. Do it now system. So the part is, I just like to speak up for the lower class people in the healthcare system. That, you know, they deserve respect just like everybody else, and they deserve a living wage also. So that was my thought on that.
All right. Well, Roz, we're up to news time now, but I do appreciate your call, and I'm glad you were able to express yourself.
I didn't give you a chance to talk back, but it just spoils me sometimes. Like I said, there's a lot of people out there that haven't got help, and they're dependent on their children. When these children are working full-time, where are they getting their time to help their parents? Thank you very much for your time.
All right. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. And we just received an email saying, in reference to the call earlier, she said the so-called COVID cop-out for a lack of customer service. She says she's so right. Everyone is thinking what she's saying. No customer service anymore. Your thoughts? By all means, give us a call.
You're listening to a rebroadcast of VOCM Open Line. Have your say by calling 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626 and listen live weekday mornings at 9 a.m.
And we are back. We're going to go now to the candidate in the by-election in Ward 4 in the city of St. John's, Mr. Greg Smith. Hello.
Hi, good morning. I think this is our first time ever talking, Linda.
Well, on Open Line for sure.
Yes.
What's on your mind?
So the campaign's going well. We've been canvassing a lot and knocking a lot of doors. One of the issues that I wanted to bring up is one that we're hearing on the doors continually, and that is the tax increases. And, we understand inflation is a factor for ourselves as individuals and consumers and as municipalities and businesses themselves. But I want to, talk about two really specific things that I think could alleviate the tax burden on residents, and we can talk about them in the sense of how we can look to reform on those before looking to the pocketbooks of taxpayers. So I know I've talked about both of these before with Patty, and one of them is going to obviously be St. John's Sport and Entertainment and the high subsidy for them. I think when I first ran, this is my third time running, I ran in the Ward 2 by-election in 2020, and I raised alarm bells then about how high the subsidy was. But to talk about it, we're talking about a subsidy that went from $3.4 million in 2019 to now about 6.7 million. That doesn't really just cover the cost of inflation and the percentage of increase there. That's a lofty sum. And I understand if it is going to be owned by the city and it is going to be an asset of ours, that there is going to have to be some level of subsidy. But I just think it's a very outlandish number, and especially how much has increased in such a little amount of time. And I think another one too on that is the business realty tax allowance. It's a policy that we have as a city. We've had it for a while, but you won't find it in cities like Halifax. Halifax is one of the fastest growing cities in our country. They don't have this policy. Maybe it's not the correct policy if no one's taken note and following suit and doing it too. So, I think that there's reform necessary on both of these fronts, Linda, and I think that could free up a few $1 million to the city of St. John's.
So what would you propose then in lieu of, some of these expenses?
Yeah, so talking about the Mary Brown Center, Convention Center, St. John's Sport and Entertainment, I think that I talked about obviously at one point we look at selling it, but I think maybe third-party management is another alternative. I know that Moncton has that for, their stadium. I think there's options that we need to start throwing out and looking at, and I think just increasing how much of a subsidy they get each and every year isn't good enough. I think we have to look at other options. I know that they've looked at, the sale and is that tangible? And I think we can still look at that also as a way forward, and maybe in terms of sale or clauses, protect how it's used for the city as well as potentially private ownership. But I think third-party management is another one too that we can look at and see if there's a way that we can give them a subsidy, but not in that amount, and get them to manage the property and not have it in that way. And I think that could free up some millions of dollars, or at least we're talking about the issue as opposed to just brushing it off each and every year. We're looking at some solutions. The business-friendly tax allowance one is another, like I mentioned to you. It's a big one, though, in the sense that if we don't see it in other cities, why do we have it? It might not be popular to some people. I know that I'm going to ruffle some feathers of some people because they benefit from this policy. But it doesn't mean it's right. What's popular and right is sometimes quite different. So I think those are solutions, and at least talking about the reform on it. A 50% subsidy in tax on a vacant business doesn't make sense to me. I think that we can do better than that. At least have some upgrades to the property, reduce it maybe to 25%. I'm willing, obviously if I get elected, Linda, I'd be one voice on council. And I know that's not enough to bring anything forward unless I have support of others. But I'm willing to find common ground on both of these issues if it means that we're not raising people's taxes in the same level that we just did.
Greg Smith, I do appreciate your time this morning. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much. And I want to remind everyone that their ballots should be going out in the next couple of days. You should be receiving them soon. And if you don't know if you're on the voters list, go on the City of St. John's, go on the voter registration portal, and ensure that you're able to vote and get out and vote. Thanks so much for your time, Linda.
All right.
And also to Debbie Hanlon, I want to send her all my love and my well wishes, and I hope that she recovers soon.
Thank you so much, Greg. Thank you.
Take care.
All right. Bye-bye. We're going to go now to Ken Bunnell. Hello, Ken.
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing okay.
What's on your mind?
Well, I was just listening to your show today and talking about the situation we're dealing with the nurses and the overall costs associated with employing nurses and the travel nurses and that sort of thing. And I think a plausible solution to the situation may be wrapped up in offering current nurses, and that could be BNs, LPNs, PCAs, early retirement. Voluntary early retirement to those that may be close to the retirement age.
So, how do you mean?
Well, I think just offering early retirement options to those that are close to retirement would solve a plethora of problems that we're now facing in the employment of nurses.
And how would that help? Because part of the problem is that there are too many vacancies in nursing.
Well, I think those vacancies, there's a lot of smoke and mirrors, I think, associated with those vacancies. I don't certainly profess to be an expert in that area, but those vacancies could be solved by maybe some of the older population retiring and offering our young graduates permanent positions through the retirement of the older workforce.
So you think there's not enough full-time opportunities for young nurses graduating from the system?
Right. I think the whole structure of the way employment is with regards to, anyone operating in healthcare is such that the younger people that are graduating can't get the jobs in the areas and the locations that they want because there's no permanent positions available. in those different jurisdictions. But I think if again, the older population were given the option for voluntary, not forced, but voluntary retirement to those that wanted to retire, and these would be people that would maybe 2-3 years away from retirement, would give the opportunity to offer permanent positions to the younger generation that are graduating in different jurisdictions that they want to work and they want to live, and would solve, I know we're talking about travel nurses and the costs associated with travel nursing, but I think that's nothing compared to what the Treasury is probably spending right now in the area of sick leave and costs associated with nurses maybe being off work because of being older and probably not being able to take the stress that they once could take. I know that's probably part and parcel of just getting a little older.
And what about the experience that they have and the ability to work through problem solving pretty quickly because they've seen it, been there, done that?
Yeah, I thought about that as well, and I think that the key, again, would be voluntary retirement. There would be certainly a group of professionals that would want to stay, and certainly mentor younger graduates. And I'd like to think that our graduates today are young and progressive and are being trained well. And I think with that right combination, I don't think that would be a concern.
Ken, I appreciate your time this morning. I want to hear what others have to say about that. Thank you very much.
I just want to say, too, a definition of insanity is doing the same things over and over and expecting a different outcome. And it seems like we talk and talk and talk about the same things. We have union leaders, they come on. I know they're trying to do their best, but before they even say anything, we know what they're going to say. The same thing is being said over and over and over, and I think we need to kind of start thinking about some out-of-the-box solutions. That's where we need to go.
Appreciate your call, Ken. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye. When we come back, we're going to speak with the MHA for Humber Bay of Islands, Eddie Joyce, who wants to talk redfish when we come back right after this. And we are back. We're going to go now to the MHA for Humber Bay of Islands, Mr. Eddie Joyce. Hello.
Hello, Linda. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I can't complain one bit.
Good. Glad to hear it.
Linda, I was calling on the redfish. As we know, a couple of weeks ago, there was a major announcement made about the redfish in Newfoundland was almost left out of the whole discussion on it and any quotas involved. Most of the quotas went to Nova Scotia, and then just explain what happened there is 30 years ago, when there was redfish in abundance, and then because of conservation, they stopped fishing any redfish whatsoever. A lot of the boats were not in use anymore, but the licenses were still kept intact. And a lot of the licenses that now have been used for 30 years are still intact for those boat owners, and they're selling them off or use them for some commission for the offshore fleets. And many of the redfish will not be caught in Nova Scotia, in Newfoundland, but by offshore boats because of 30-year-old licenses. No plants available. The machinery is not in place to process redfish. And most people that you speak to in Newfoundland and Labrador say even all the union people, the government people, the federal, say they were blindsided by this decision.
And there are even suggestions now that the federal government might be providing money to help them build boats in Nova Scotia to persecute this fishery?
I haven't heard that, but it wouldn't surprise me because there was a great lobbying effort by the government of Nova Scotia and the MPs and the federal minister in Nova Scotia for that. And this is affecting a lot of like the boat owners in Anchor Point, Port au Choix, all that area, especially with the shrimp boats, where now the shrimp was caught so much that would give them the opportunity to catch a lot of fish. I'm not here, Linda, this morning to criticize the government, the provincial government, on what they're doing, because I'm sure behind the scenes there's work that's being done on this. But over my years in government, if you really want an issue brought to the forefront, you need the Premier out in front. We haven't heard anything from the Premier on this. I'm not sure what he's doing behind the scenes with it, but I'll just use a good example, the carbon tax. The Premier got out front and center on the carbon tax. And when you have a Premier of the province out front and center, picking up for all the fisher people in Newfoundland and Labrador, and I just want to point out there's 3 plants in Humber Bay of Islands that's going to be affected. 3 fish plants, hundreds and hundreds of jobs being affected by this. So this is why it's so crucial to the Humber Bay of Islands, the Cornbrook area, plus to all the boat owners. If the Premier is out front and center, he's going to bring the Prime Minister involved. Once the Prime Minister involved, there has to be a new set of eyes looked at it. There's going to be meetings coming up next week, I think 3 or 4 days in Halifax to decide on the distribution of the quota. So I'm urging the Premier, and this is by no means saying that there's not work being done by the Minister behind the scenes. I'm not saying that. I'm not inferring that whatsoever. But what I am saying, when you get the union, when you get the plant owners, and you get the boat owners, you get New Brunswick, and you get other people in PEI all come together saying this decision is wrong, we have to change it. And the person that we need out front is the Premier, Andrew Furey, to highlight this to the Prime Minister of Canada. There was a better lobbying than in Nova Scotia for have the quota distributed the way it was. And now with the meetings coming up next week, I'm asking the Premier on behalf of all the shrimp boat owners, all the people who's affected on the North Shore, on the Northern Peninsula, all the people that's going to be affected in the Humber Bay of Islands with the 3 plant, all the closures that may happen with the boats because they still got their bills to pay with no shrimp. I'm asking the Premier of the province to come out front and center on this here and bring this to a higher level to the Prime Minister's desk. And the only way to do that is the Premier of the province. And I'm sure the Minister Lovelace is doing his job on it. I'm sure at the rally that was held that the union came together. The union is doing their part on it also. But Premier, we need you front and center. We need you in front of the people that's affected by this here, and support all the plant workers and support all the boat owners that are so wrongly affected by this decision.
It's the union called it a punch in the guts. I mean, so many people were really looking towards this redfish quota as their salvation, if you will. Not salvation per se, but if you know what I mean. They were desperately looking for an answer and felt that redfish was it, and that's turned out not to be the case.
And then there's a part of it. If you speak to all those individuals that were involved, this blindsided them all. They're all led to believe that the decision was that Newfoundland would get a higher proportion of that quota. So this is not where one person against the other said Newfoundland. This is where all people in Newfoundland and Labrador who was involved with the redfish felt that they were misled on the quota allocations. So this is not just plant owners against the boat owners. This is not the boat owners against the owners of the fish plants. This is everybody who felt this way. And I know Minister Hutchings got to come out and say, well, did she know? Did she know? And I'm willing to bet. I'm honestly willing to bet that she did not know that the quota was coming down this way. I'm convinced. And the other thing about it, there's a 25,000-ton quota. The science shows that there's a 275,000 that you could allocate, but they're going on a conservative 25,000-ton quota. That's what the minister stated, but there's room there to maneuver on this here. And my point is, next week is when the allocation, when they got the people involved next week for the recommendations for the allocations. This is the week that we need the Premier to bring this to a new level. This is the week. This is the week that the Prime Minister got to say, was this decision right? And were the people in Newfoundland and Labrador misled by the potential quota they thought and all the lobbying that they did and all the meetings that they had, was this change from what was recommended and what was said to the people of Newfoundland and Labrador? And Minister Hutchings and the Premier can meet with the Prime Minister and get this resolved. And we need that, because we're talking hundreds of jobs. We're talking about a lot of people down in Anchor Point and Northern Peninsula with the shrimp boats who may lose their boats, may lose everything that they work for, because now the quota's cut so much. One trip for one of those big boats now to take 3/4 of a load, shrimp is finished. That's all the quotas cut so much. So we must ask the Premier of the province to personally get involved and take the lead, and he will up the ante for the people of Newfoundland and Labrador and the people of the West Coast on this redfish.
Eddie Joyce, I appreciate your call this morning. Thank you very much.
Linda, and just on a closing note, I see Brian Moore today has moved on from politics. I just want to thank Brian for all the work that he did for his district, and he's been a great friend for over 45 years to me. He's a man who's dedicated to his district. He's a man who's dedicated to the province. He's a very principled man, and I just wish Brian and his family all the best in his endeavors, and congratulate him on the great work that he did for the last 8 years for the people of his district and also for the province of Newfoundland and Labrador.
Independent MHA for Humber Bay of Islands, Eddie Joyce, thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity again.
Okay, bye-bye. And we are up to news time now. You're listening to VOCM Open Line. Linda Swain in for Patty Daly. And now is your opportunity to give us a call. We've had a pretty busy day so far, but we have a few lines open. Now's your chance.
Start your day off right. Get the latest updates on news, traffic, and weather conditions, plus interviews with today's newsmakers. Your go-to source before you get on the go. 5:30 to 9 a.m. weekdays. Your VOCM mornings.
And we're back into the final half hour of the program. Linda Swain in for Patty Daly, who is off today. We're going to go now to Alistair Han. You're on the air. Hello, Alistair.
Hello, Linda.
How are you?
Not too bad.
That's good. What's on your mind?
Linda, I'm calling this morning with regard to what Eddie Joyce was talking about. And I've heard a lot of the talk about the redfish quota and historical attachment, and who should get it and who shouldn't get it. Linda, I would challenge any politician, fish company, or anybody, including VOCM, to go to DFO and get the statistics for redfish landings from the Gulf of St. Lawrence from 1960, well, I'll take it as far as 1990. And I'm pretty sure, Linda, what you're going to find out is that the most redfish taken from the Gulf of St. Lawrence was taken and landed in Galthouse, Ramya, and Burgeo. I could give you the names of the skippers, the names of the vessels, and I can assure you that when push comes to shove and anybody starts to go look for historical attachment, be it Eddie Joyce, Jerry Byrne, whoever, that they're going to find that the towns of Burgeo, Ramya, and Galthouse probably landed more redfish from the Gulf than any other community in Canada.
Certainly, when the redfish fishery closed, that was pretty much the death knell for the fishing industry in Galthouse.
The Galthouse was given a redfish quota as a result of the moratorium. I think they got Nova Scotians to land it. But Linda, I think it's absolutely ridiculous that everybody is talking about this fish, and that you know, everybody has got a claim on it, but there is not one word about Burgeo, Ramya, or Galthouse. Now, I'm not going to be looking for a job fishing redfish or anything like that. But I can tell you the midwater trawlers were, I believe it was the Penny Luck 2, was converted to midwater trawl because redfish has got a habit of coming up in the water during the nighttime, and with the midwater trawl, you could catch it. Linda, I'm talking about load after load after load. There's nowhere. Yes, I'm pretty sure I'm right. There is nowhere in Canada, not Newfoundland, but Canada, that could touch Galtas, Ramya, and Burgeo with regard to redfish. Now, the moratorium, of course, closed down most of those plants. But I've been around this a while. Burgeo one time got a quota for crab. The crab quota went down the next year. Oh, they said, you were first in. We're last in, so therefore you got to be first out. Well, Linda, Burgeo was first in this case. I think it's about time that some consideration was given to splitting that quota up and giving some of that quota to Burgeo.
Well, I mean, everybody, as Eddie Joyce just pointed out, we're flabbergasted by the decision to give the vast majority of that quota to Nova Scotia offshore.
Well, I don't know who was flabbergasted or who wasn't, but it's about time somebody looked at what's right and what's wrong, and go get the history of the redfish. Linda, I challenge that this morning. I challenge it to Premier Fury, to our MP Gowdy Hutchings, the Minister of Fisheries, whoever she is. That's the one I think that the union leader loved when she came in. She knew all about fishing and was going to straighten up everything in the fisheries. Anyway, I challenge them all. Go get the statistics. Get the statistics and look at the redfish that Burgeo and Ramya and Galtas landed from 1960, and I'll go as far as 1990.
Is this proof yet again that the fishery is nothing more, when it comes to federal management, is nothing more than politics?
Well, that's what it is, and then politics comes down to who knows who.
Alistair, I do appreciate your time this morning. Thank you very much.
Okay, bye.
All right, bye-bye. And the independent MHA, Eddie Joyce, asking where's the Premier on all of this, because it has such a devastating impact on Newfoundland and Labrador. If you have any thoughts, you're welcome to call us. So we're going to go now to Anne. You're on the air. Hello, Anne.
Hi, how are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm pretty good. I was just calling because I heard that lady on there about where you can't get anything done unless you know the computers, or you can't get hold to anybody, or you can't get any information unless you know. Do you think that people 80 years old was born with a computer in their hand? I mean, you can phone wherever you like. It's got to be, go to the website or go to text or do whatever. I mean, I don't use computers. I'm, getting up there. But anyway.
Do you find it more difficult to do your bit of business now because of that?
Well, of course. I mean, I've been trying for 2 years now to get some information. And I already sent the application 2 years ago to get information on changing from a oil furnace to a electric one. I'm still waiting for information. Then I called the one that's supposed to be the advocates for seniors, see if she could give me some information. Well, she gave me a number for the power company, so I phoned the power company. And what did I get? Go on the website or go on this and go on something else and get the information. I mean, it's unreal for the senior citizens. If we don't soon get something that's, going to do something for us, then we can forget it. I mean, you just can't get any information if you don't know the computer, and you don't know the cell phone, and you don't know this, and you don't know that. I mean, it's ridiculous.
And the Seniors Advocate has touched on this in the past as well. There has to be a way to serve all of your customers, especially your loyal customers who have spent a lifetime with you.
Well, I mean, if you could pick up the phone and phone somebody and talk to them and say, I'm looking for information on this. But, I mean, not a chance. You can call whoever you like, and that's the same thing you get. Occasionally you will get somebody to talk to, but not very often. And I go along with that guy was just on there about the fishery, too. That's something else. They're trying to get rid of all the small fishermen, and they're trying to get rid of all the small communities, but we're here to stay.
Anne, I appreciate your call this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. And feeling really feisty this morning and fed up, obviously. If you have any thoughts on what she's had to say, I encourage you to give us a call. We're going to go to a short break now. We're into the last 15 minutes of the show. If there's anything you've heard or and want to remark on, or if there's anything you want to bring up, now is the time to call. And we're back. And some time ago, the provincial government put out a request for commentary on roads planning for Newfoundland and Labrador. And this is the last day, I believe, for public input into that process, roads planning input at gov.nl.ca. And they're asking people for, an idea of where the biggest need is. We received an email from a listener who says Route 205, and that's the highway just after you turn off Hillview, about 15 kilometers east of Clarenville, that area. Route 205, and sent pictures along showing, the shoulder is gone and, the pavement is being cracked up and eaten away, and there's big potholes and the like, and there's many roads out there like it across Newfoundland and Labrador. So if you don't have an opportunity to call today about roads that need attention in your area, I would welcome you to call us tomorrow. We're going to go now to Daryl. You're on the air. Hi, Daryl.
Oh, hi, Linda. How are you today?
Great. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing good. Thank you very much. Linda, what I want to talk about today, a combination of things. I'm talking about, groceries still going up and up. And I'll just give you a good example. I went and bought some raw almonds there recently, and within the last few weeks, and, on a bag of almonds, that alone, it jumped up $2 more in price.
Yes, and almonds is one of those items that really has skyrocketed in price. I think it has something to do with the drought in California. Am I right on that?
Yeah, I think, they're having problems with not only the almonds, but in California, grapes, too. Apparently, it's gotten really bad. It's not good for farming. They've been losing a lot of stuff. And and this is a 700 gram bag. So within the last 2 weeks, it jumped up $2. So I don't know where it's all going to end to, but everything's still going up and up and up, and they're predicting by the summer, and I hope this prediction is wrong, that gas could be $2 a liter. So between the jigs and the reels, how are we going to get inflation down now? Inflation now is 2.9, which should drop at 0.5%. Which is good, but I'm not sure where they're getting their figures from. But you look at that, they're aiming for 2% to Bank Canada before they lower the rates. Say that 0.9. Why don't we start lowering rates now? Because it don't make sense to me, because it looks like over 60% of small businesses are going to struggle, or they might not make it due to interest rates, and the list goes on and on. So to me, say that 0.9. Let's start lowering the rates down now, and because if we don't, the economy is going to be crippled more and more and more, and we're in for more devastation. So I think this is something that this got to be taken a good, serious look at, because, what happens if next month inflation trickles up again? You know what I mean? It even edges up, whatever. So if they're aiming for that 2, it don't make sense to me, because the rates will probably never come down, even though the banks are making record profits. So I looked at an episode on Marketplace recently. That's what they're talking about, the groceries, and they went back to the farmers, the farmland, and so forth. And the people that are actually farming the food, I couldn't believe it. They're only getting pennies. They're only making pennies on what they're getting. So the grocery chains are making, so they're blaming putting the blame elsewhere, but that's not always the case. So, things got to be looked at for the better, and if not, it's just going to be total devastation if we keep going the way we're going.
Well, indeed, and we haven't even seen the full impact of the interest rate increases yet. I mean, I know some people a lot of people who are mortgage holders are, feeling that pinch. But when it comes time for renewal, anybody who's locked in, those impacts are going to be devastating.
And it is going to be devastating. And like I watched the episode recently, Robert Kiyosaki, actually I mentioned it to Patty there, he was on 30 Minutes to Wealth, and he talked about like even the feds, like Jerome Powell down there, they got it all wrong. He more or less indicated, it'd be nice if you get him on to your show. This guy got a lot of knowledge, real estate and the economy in general, and I mean, they got it all wrong. Like basically he's saying they're squeezing the people now, and if we keep getting squeezed, we're going to be in that much damage control that it's not going to be able to be repaired. And like mortgage renewals and the interest rates gone up on all aspects, and like I said, banks making record profits. This is crazy, and because like 2%, so you're at 0.9, and you still can't lower the rates. There's something wrong with this whole picture, and I agree with Pierre Poilievre. I think the Governor of the Bank of Canada and all these people, I think this all got to be revisited and how they're dealing with things. Yes, he wants to get inflation down, but to what point? You're gonna break the people in the country? It's not worth it. So I think the old way of doing things is we got to be more innovative, more creative, and look how we do things in a much innovative and creative way.
Daryl, I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Okay, again, thank you, Linda, for having me on the show, and all the best to you and VOCM and your listening audience.
Same to you.
Oh, take care.
All right, you too. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
And just looking out over Dave's shoulder there now. Wow, the snow is really coming down. I knew there was some flurries in the forecast, but I didn't realize it was going to be that intense. Take it easy out there if you happen to be out on the roads. It's no doubt going to be slippery if the snow is coming down where you are. Well, we are going now to the opposition justice critic with the PC Party of Newfoundland and Labrador, Helen Conway Ottenheimer. Hello.
Hello there, Linda. Good morning. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. First of all, Linda, I do want to comment about the recent resignation of MHA Brian Moore, and I just want to say I had the privilege of working with him on many committees, as well as in the House of Assembly, and I can say that he was a dedicated and caring MHA, and I felt quite honored to work with him, and I wish him the best of luck in his future endeavors, and the best to his family as well.
Well, thanks for that. And any interactions I've had with Brian Moore, he always came across as very much dedicated and devoted to what he was doing.
Exactly, and he certainly will be missed.
Now, that's not why you called, primarily.
No, the reason I called, Linda, is I'm very concerned about the Minister of Justice and Public Safety's recent response to the pleas that came from the RCMP just recently, who were seeking some support from the Justice Department, specifically more police officers and more administrative support in the area of Trinity Conception Bay North. Now, that includes part of the District of Harbour, Maine, and the Conception Bay North Joint Council is made up of a number of municipalities within this area that's been referenced, and these mayors and councillors are very concerned about the increase in calls for police assistance. They are not only mental health calls, but we've been told by the RCMP that there's an insidious drug trade in the area, And it certainly, from what the statistics show, has one of the highest calls for service in the province with respect to serious violent crime. So it is clear that there is a problem in terms of the situation and crime being, I would describe it as being out of control. And we hear from the Minister of Justice, his response was, in my view, quite dismissive. It was very uncaring, to say the least. It showed that he was not listening to these concerns. His response basically was one of two, or his attitude was really basically dismissing these concerns by the superintendent of the RCMP, and sort of there was almost a blame element going on there to suggest that it was the responsibility and the problem emanated from the fact that the RCMP aren't staffed well enough, according to him, which for me is totally not the issue. It's irrelevant, and I find it unconscionable for our Minister of Justice to respond to this serious crime spike by saying it's a police staffing issue. And I worry about the effect that the Minister of Justice, his dismissive attitude will have on the morale of the hard-working RCMP officers who are out there, who are, from what I'm told, run into the ground basically with the work that they have to do, and they need the resources, Linda. So that's in a nutshell my serious concerns with the Minister of Justice, and I also call upon the ministers that are involved in this district, Minister Crocker and Minister Pam Parsons. I wonder how they are, whether they're pleased with their colleague in Cabinet's refusal to address this crime wave in their district.
I'm glad you had the opportunity to raise this on Open Line this morning. It's a very serious issue, and you're right. There is an alarming increase in serious crime in the Conception Bay North area, one of the most populous areas outside of St. John's. So I'm glad you raised it. We haven't really got time to explore it very much today, but I do invite you to come back on the show and we can talk about it further.
I appreciate that, Linda, and I thank you for your time, and hopefully we will hear a response from the Minister of Justice on this important, serious issue.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye. And Helen Conway Ottenheimer, the opposition justice critic, has had the last word on VOCM Open Line today. Thank you, everyone, for your contributions to the show. Much appreciated. We'll be back tomorrow, or Patty will be back tomorrow, to take your calls. Stay tuned for News at Noon. Thanks for listening.